Okay, so this is a self-portrait of me. Hopefully you can tell that. It's basically I just drew this recently. It's a bit unusual because I usually don't do figures very often. I draw in my sketchbook a lot, people, um, but in my paintings I usually don't. And this is not a painting. This is actually charcoal on board. And I just did it one day, like kind of bored of here or there. Just wanted to do a self-portrait, and everyone does self-portraits. I think in art school, like one of the first projects you get is to paint yourself. So I remember one of my first paintings was to draw myself with an object. I drew myself with a piece of garlic. So, but anyways, yeah, I don't know. It's kind of got a German. It's kind of like German expressionism, I guess. Someone said to me, and I posted this on Facebook actually.
Oh.
It's one of my avatars. And I've got some comments from it. Some people really like it. Some people think it's really unflattering and ugly.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what I kind of like about drawing is that, it's not about, or it's not always, when you're drawing figures, it's not always about conveying someone in a flattering light, but capturing the kind of character that somebody has.
Right. So in this self-portrait, tell me like three things that you capture. The key.
The key things?
Like
physical things, or you mean in terms of...
Well, let's go with physical things first,
okay.
And then more abstract. Yeah.
Okay, I guess I have a low forehead, so I guess that's one thing I've always felt self-conscious about, but it's definitely one thing that you can find in a picture of me. The nose is always a main feature. My parents actually wanted me to get a nose job, so... but I resisted, and I think I'm glad, because it is, I think maybe it might have happened when I was in recess, some kid pushed me and I fell on my nose, but, everyone's self-conscious about it, but over time I've been happy about my nose, and, yeah, let's see what else. I think maybe that look, the sideways look, is another characteristic of me. Like, I think it's, yeah, I try not to do it, but because I know it kind of looks a bit sly, but that's another thing. My ear actually doesn't exist up there, obviously, but it's kind of quirky, eh? It doesn't really, it doesn't, like, I think that's the other thing about this portrait. It kind of is like a symbol for how I feel about the work in a way, because it's not about, what is actually represented, but what it feels like, I guess.
So what it feels like. So you talked about the physical stuff.
Yeah.
Tell me more about what it feels like.
Well,
what do you try to capture?
Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. The story that I was telling Kempton about was this. When I was younger, the first thing I drew in art school was this ginger root, and it was very detailed. It was like a charcoal on paper, much like this one, and it had all the lights and darks in the right places and everything. I was really, really. Proud of myself for drawing this ginger root. And my parents, they came in and they looked over my shoulder and they said, yeah, it looks like the ginger root, but you didn't capture it. It's not doesn't capture the feeling of this object. It's not that great. And I was like, kind of shocked, because I spent the first few years like copying National Geographic photos, making a drawing of Leonardo DiCaprio. It looked exactly like him, and I was like, what does that mean? Like, my parents don't know anything. How can they say it's not a good drawing? It looks just like it. And over time, I think as I paint more and more, I'm starting to realize that it's actually, I think a lot of painters will agree, it's about representing the feeling of something, as opposed to, the technical, like making it look exactly with all the details, like somebody. So
how did you feel at the time you drew yourself?
Well,
yeah, and how did you represent it in the drawing? Yeah, in this one. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't think that much of it. I was just trying to make an interesting drawing in a way. I think I was feeling probably, as I usually do, a little depressed. Like a little forlorn. And I mean, this image also captures some of the things that I like about drawing, is that it captures mistakes, erasing this line. I mean, if you didn't have that, then it would just be this perfect, well, not perfect, but it would be not as interesting, because in real life you'd be like, what is that? And I like how the mind can take like this or this thumb mark by accident and make it into something, make sense of it. And I think that's really interesting to me, how those marks can just disrupt our relationship with an image. So I don't know exactly what I was feeling, but a little bit of, I mean, any self-portrait, there's a feeling of mortality as well, right? When you look at Rembrandt, he did so many portraits of himself over time, and just um, and his relationship with his own image, and knowing that he's going to die eventually. I mean, that's why self-portraits are interesting to look at from like an artistic point of view, but as well as just any human being, right?